Welcome back to By the Bookshelf this evening. Thank you for joining me. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges of worship during this pandemic and even in the future as the church landscape shifts, that often these crisis moments can accelerate trends that have already been happening. Whether that's the trend of declining worship attendance, the trend of more things going digital, crises like these accelerate trends that are already there. Now, as you know, some churches are meeting again in person. Some are meeting outside, some are meeting inside, some are doing both. Some churches have even said, hey, we're going to not meet until 2021 and just see how all this plays out, giving people just an early clarifying answer of what worship and what church life is going to be like. They've kind of said, you know what? It's diminishing returns trying to do these small worship things, change it up. It's not really working, that our mission's to reach people. And so they've said, let's put worship in the building on hold and focus a lot more of our efforts on connecting people in ways that they need to be connected now. A lot more of our efforts on mission and other ways of creating educational opportunities. And other churches have said, hey, we found ways we can meet. Some have giant football fields or big parking lots. We've done our outdoor worship in our front lawn under the grove trees, or the grove of oaks. Some churches have big sanctuaries and small congregations where they can spread out easily. Different churches have chosen different things, and some churches have done this successfully. Other churches, there have been nightmare stories, like the one you might have read about in Ohio, where one person with COVID-19 infected 100 other people at the church. There's a story recently in Georgia of a child who ended up getting COVID from church and dying later. There's good stories and there's bad stories. Regardless of all those ups and downs, the early indications are that in-person church attendance is lower than anyone really expected right now. Most leaders and stories and statistics are showing that those who have reopened public worship, whether outside or inside, are seeing between 10 and 40% of their former in-person attendance. I think by now it's clear that this first Sunday back isn't going to be the big Easter moment we thought it was going to be last spring. I remember when we first shut down for a few weeks, we were all thinking, well, let's just hold off on the brass group and all the big stuff, because maybe in a few weeks we'll kind of do a special big Easter type Sunday service then. We were thinking once we're all back, then we'll have our big moment. It's clear that's not going to happen. That hope has given way to the tough reality of social distancing, the current inability to offer kids ministry in the same way. Older or at-risk adults understandably staying away, and a lot of people seeming to prefer digital or non-attendance than in-person attendance. I've talked with many of you, and some of you have shared you're not going to come back until there's a vaccine, that you're worried even about outdoor services, that you need to stay home because of your health or a loved one's health. Others of you have shared how much you miss in-person worship and how much you miss just being with the church community, which is why we've tried to create opportunities to come and gather together safely. But even then, it's kind of this idea that we haven't even had as many come to our outdoor worship services as we expected. More on that in a little bit. The challenge this brings up, though, is that as we're trying to figure out, do we keep doing online services? Do we keep doing in-person services outside? Do we try to do in-person services inside? Do we try to do both at the same time? The trap that can exist for church leaders, sessions, and pastors and all of this is, what if we end up doing neither well? What if we put so much energy into figuring out how to do in-person worship that we're missing the pastoral care moments that really need to be available during this pandemic time when there's mental fatigue, emotional fatigue, lack of connections? What if we put all our energy into things that have very low returns and we're missing the mission opportunities that need to happen? We're missing the connectional opportunities that need to happen. Sometimes we can get in the old mindset of we need to do it this way because we've always done it this way, that ends up not helping. I remember at my first church that some of the older ladies in the church always liked to bake food when there was a new baby in the congregation to help that family. Now, the first church I served was very small, and it didn't have very many younger people. There were only a couple young families. And I remember the first time one of the young women had a new baby in the congregation. It was a big deal. We hadn't had one in a while. And all the older women in the women's group wanted to show such care and support for this family, which is wonderful and great. But the way they did it didn't really fit with the needs of the family anymore. They all wanted to bring over casseroles and things, and these very nice casserole dishes, their china, all this stuff to show how much they cared. To them, it was this meaningful gift of, I respect you so much, I want to put something in nice casserole dishes. I want to give you nice plates because I want it to be nice for you. Nothing wrong with that thinking. But for Regina, who was receiving it, it felt like an extra stressor. She suddenly was like, oh no, what if I drop something? What if I break one of these dishes? And now I have to try to wash all of these dishes. I need to remember who brought what. I need to put names on it, because what if I send this really nice casserole dish to the wrong person? I've got to write all of these thank you notes. And suddenly, what was supposed to be this gift to help the family actually ended up causing more stress. So she came to me and was trying to ask, well, how do I not offend the ladies who are trying so hard to do something nice while also actually having it be a gift that helps us during this stressful, busy time? So we had to rethink how to do this kind of ministry. And it wasn't easy, because to some of the ladies, the suggestions of making casseroles in tinfoil things and delivering it to a family was just like the most horrible idea that ever came up. Like, it's sacrilegious to bring casserole in a disposable tinfoil pan. It showed a lack of respect. See, the idea was, this old paradigm said you bring your casserole in a nice casserole dish. But the new paradigm was saying that's not really helpful anymore. There are other options like these disposable aluminum foil. So we can keep doing the same old thing where people just end up saying, please, I'd rather you not come at all. Or we can shift our focus to the new realities of the world. I think the same thing happens with church. We can keep thinking, you know what, we've always had Sunday school at 9 o'clock in the morning, followed by worship, followed by youth group. We have to keep doing that. We have to keep offering education the same way. We have to keep doing mission in the same way. But what if that same way doesn't work as well anymore? Or doesn't work as well during a certain time period? You have to be able to be flexible and maybe think, you know what, I was investing our time and energy into this part of ministry. Maybe we need to shift. Stewardship Finance Committee thinks this way all the time. Tracy Burke, who's one of our members who helps out with our investments, will often give us recommendations of, you know what, stock market doesn't seem to be real good right now. Maybe we should put more stuff in secure bonds. We need to diversify here. At different times, we have different investment strategies based on what's happening in the world. You don't always stick with one strategy. It's the same thing for churches. In the midst of changing demographics, in the midst of changing ways of life, we may have to change how we do worship, how we do church in general, how we do mission. This is one of those times we have to rethink, where do we want to put our resources, our energy, all of that, because we don't want to end up not doing ministry well because we're trying to do something you can't succeed at. So think about worship at the moment. In the spring, we had some pretty high live stream numbers. I think people were anxious for any kind of connection. We were all stuck at our homes. But those have settled down, where we did hit heights of 350 different IP addresses, different computers or devices watching the live stream. Now we're settling around 200. So is that because summer attendance usually lessens anyway and we see less people coming? Is it the summer kind of slump in worship attendance? Is it because people are just worn out on digital platforms, that the live stream was interesting for a while, but the novelty kind of wore off? Is it because people are busy and now getting ready for school, doing their last little bits of vacation? I don't know. We do know that those have dipped. Attendance usually dips in the summer, but we're trying to kind of figure out more of why is this dipping. But even in-person worship, has been less than expected. We had these outdoor worship services, and for a while we thought, man, we can only let people sign up for one of them and have a cap at 80 because too many people are going to want to come. That has not been the case. We've averaged around 40 attendees coming, and often they've been the same ones. So is that because Tuesday nights at 7 are just not a good time? Is it because it's been kind of hot in the summer and people don't want to go outside? Is it because people are still nervous to gather in person? Is it because people just really aren't interested in that kind of style of outdoor worship where it's shorter, there's not as much singing or high quality fancy music? We have fixed the sound system where hearing isn't much of an issue, but there's a lot of different reasons why maybe those outdoor worship services haven't gotten large attendance. It's one reason we sent out the survey digitally today. We want to find out, well, is Tuesday evening good, or is Saturday evening better? Or are you just not comfortable attending worship at all right now? Because again, we don't want to invest a whole lot of time and energy into services that people aren't coming to. We might want to rethink where to spend our time and energy that can get the most positive results. See, the reality is I think worship is going to be different in the future, one way or the other. One way or the other, worship's going to look different here in the future, in the fall. Maybe we'll continue to have outdoor services as the weather gets nice in the fall. Maybe we'll be able to move indoors on a Tuesday or a Saturday or even a Sunday. But even then, it's going to look different without, hymnals being passed or offering plates being passed. People being more spread out where you can't just go and shake hands and whisper back and forth behind the pew, just real close together. It's going to look different. I think some maybe who are on the edge of church membership and attendance, who are kind of on the fringes, may just drop out entirely. But then on the other hand, some who used to kind of be on the peripherals have kind of pulled more in because they needed that kind of church connection. Some may just say, you know what, I'm done with live stream. When you start having in-person regular worship again, then I'll come back. Others have kind of said, you know what, I kind of like this digital live stream thing. Even maybe when we're back in the sanctuary, I might spend more time on live stream than I am in the building. It's going to be different. We're going to see new patterns emerge one way or the other. Our leadership, though, is not going to adopt they're all going to come back just like before mindset. That'd be naive. We already see that's not going to be the case. Things will be different, and we aren't sure how they'll be different yet. Different people are going to end up with different ideas and things depending on their context, their family situation, their ease with technology, their ease with travel. The reality is denial isn't going to help. Denial isn't a strategy. Wise leaders don't let their fatigue make decisions for them. It's easy just to kind of be like, man, we're worn out. Let's just go with what we know. Let's just stay the course. Let's just try to go right back to where we were before. That's not going to help the church. It's not going to help you. So here are some of the challenges we face with worship. And I want you to be fully aware of all these challenges. First, let's think about outdoor worship. One of the challenges is finding the right time. Is an evening good? Is an afternoon? Is a morning? Does Tuesday evening work? Does Saturday at 5 work best? Does trying to do something early Sunday morning and then flip everything and try to do something on live stream actually work best? Do we have two different services going with two different kind of musical groups happening? One on live stream, one outside. Other challenges with outside is it can rain or it can be really hot. You have to have that backup plan ready. Indoor worship has its own challenges of making sure we keep the building clean, making sure we space people out enough. Then how we do music. Do we have the singers wearing a mask? Can we have brass that are pumping out all kinds of stuff into the air as they're using those instruments that we have to basically blow a lot into them? Flute, woodwind, brass, all those have been seen to cause a lot of viral spread. So do we have much singing at all? Can children come up? Can we have any kind of conversation for children? Do we offer nursery during that time, especially when children under 2 wouldn't wear a mask, would nursery workers feel comfortable being with those children? All these are kind of challenges. Even if we have a Saturday evening in person, it still might be a 30-minute service that's very simple. Just a one-page bulletin where you sing a couple short refrains. You're not doing all the passing of the piece. You're not having the big anthems, all the music. It's different. My hope is that like our bell choir can come back before too long, because you can do bells with a mask on. You can kind of distance yourself a lot easier. You can do that a lot more than you can do a singing choir or a brass group. But then the big challenge is, well, Sunday morning, do we do in person or do we do live stream or do we do both? For those, let's say right now, imagine a service right now. A lot of our pieces are pre-recorded for music, so because not everybody can come on a Sunday morning, we be able to rehearse, we can spread out. No one else is in the kind of sanctuary when those singers are singing without a mask, so we have a lot of things pre-recorded. The children's message, where children sometimes video and send something in, or we record a Zoom call. People reading scripture, the musical portions. All that is kind of dropped in, so half the worship is actually recorded before Sunday morning. So if we have people in the building, they're only going to see the sermon and a couple of the liturgy bits. The rest of the service is going out on live stream, but those in the building can hear that a little bit, but they can't actually see it. So that becomes a problem. Do we keep worship that way and say, hey, you can come and watch what we're doing, but you're going to miss half the worship? That's one option. You can fit maybe 100 people in the sanctuary. They could see the sermon and see a bit of the liturgy, but they're going to miss a lot of other parts. Or do you say, hey, we're going to really gear this service to those in the sanctuary, so we're just going to have some simple songs. It's going to be shorter, and we'll live stream that, which creates, for those who have been live streaming, suddenly the quality and participation of the worship goes from here to here. Is that the best plan? Do you try to do 2 separate services, one completely geared for live stream and one geared for 100 people in the sanctuary? Is that the best use of resources and time, though? And when would that happen? Which time does the live stream happen at? Which time does the in-person happen at? Again, is that 2 on a Sunday morning? Is that 1 on a Saturday? Which is which? The reality is, if we had a way for people in the sanctuary to actually see the same thing the live stream we're seeing, this wouldn't be nearly as much of a challenge. Once it was safer and we were allowed, even on the state level, to have 100 people in the sanctuary, then they could be watching the same thing that the live stream were watching. It's kind of like going to a football game. I've been to a few NFL games. I've been to the Eagles. I've been to the Panthers. Whenever I go to like an in-person game, even college, I usually don't have the absolute best seats in the world because I don't want to spend that much money on good seats. But there's something about being in person at a football game, the excitement, seeing things happen live on the field, even if you can't see that well. Kind of reminds me of our sanctuary. There aren't too many good seats in the sanctuary. I kind of wish we had that stadium seating. Many of you have complained that if you're on one of the transepts, you can't really see what happens with puppet ministry when they're doing something. Or the choir can never really see what's happening with the children's moments down below, and they can't see the puppets because they're behind it. Or people out in the center area of the sanctuary. If you're far back sometimes and people are tall in front of you, you can't see when the children are sitting on the floor or the children's choir singing. At Advent, the wreath is blocking people in one of the transepts. That a lot of places it's hard to see everything that's happening on the chancel. So when I'm at a football game, I'll watch a lot of the game looking down from my seat on the field. But I also find myself turning and watching the Jumbotron too, because sometimes I can see the Jumbotron better than I can see the field. Or if I want to see a replay, I'll watch that. Or if things are happening, I'll watch the big field for a moment, but I'll jump to the Jumbotron to get a better view of things. That's what often happens in worship as well. That when you can't see, if we had a way to have the live stream where people could watch it, when it's live, they could be watching it live, but then they could watch the pre-recorded videos on a screen or whatever. Or even when we're all back together in the sanctuary, if you're in one of the transepts and can't see the puppets, if you had a way to watch something, you could suddenly then actually see what the puppets are doing. That's one of our challenges right now, though, is if you're in the sanctuary, you're missing anything that was pre-recorded. And a lot of our service is pre-recorded right now. And we've been able to do better worship because of that. We don't want to fall into the trap of trying to do in-person worship and it's not being all that good because we're so limited, or just trying to do live stream worship, and those who really want to have that connection, feel the energy of worshiping with others, miss that. So we're going to continue to host these outdoor services, whether that stays on Tuesday or switches days, and we're still trying to figure out this balance of whenever we move indoors, do we have a separate indoor service geared completely to those in the congregation, or is there a way we can figure out to have both live stream and indoor worshiping happening at the same time where the experience can be good for both? Because the reality is, in-person worship and gathering isn't going away. I mean, right now we're not having it in the building, but we've still had it outside, and it's a short-term thing. We're going to be back in the building eventually. We're going to have people worshiping together. As long as there are people, people will want to gather in person. But in the same way, almost every CEO is rethinking how much office space they really need in light of how well their teams are working from home. Or vice versa, man, this really isn't working, we need to rethink how that is. Church leaders may want to rethink why they're spending the vast majority of their time, budget, and human resources on in-person services that fewer people are potentially attending, that more people are attending at home. Which is why we've spent money on upgrading our live streaming services. More and more of our members are sometimes living in retirement communities or are unable to drive to worship. We want to continue to make those good, but also make in-person worship good. So we want to rethink all of how we're doing ministry. If our mission is to fill the building, then we just keep trying to fill the building. But if our mission is to reach people, it might be time to rethink how we're reaching people, both in worship, in education, in fellowship, in mission. This time is a time to rethink things right now. It's why we're hiring staff who are creative and willing to reach out beyond the walls and create programming that's innovative and flexible beyond these old paradigms of in-person Sunday school, worship, youth group with pizza and games in the basement. We have to rethink things. We want to do things well and not just do things to do them. Which is why the survey we sent out today is so important for you to be able to fill out. We want to really consider what your needs are, what the community's needs are, and balance those, and also do things well. Which is why we're really thinking about worship, both in person, digital, outside, inside. If we kind of don't do much in September due to kind of seeing, well, what's going to happen with schools reopening? How's the virus going to spread then or not? And I know a lot of our parents and our teachers, they're just really stressed right now about school, so we don't want to put too much onto people during that time. So Session's going to think about these things. We're going to send out a letter, actual mail letter after our August session meeting that kind of details the latest updates, where the church is moving, in what direction. We also want to hopefully film a session member talking about our plans moving forward. We don't just want to put everything on hold and not do anything. We want to keep planning. We also don't want to jump in too quick. We want to do things well. We want to figure out what our mission is and continue to do our mission, not just fill the building. But part of our mission is creating connections and having this community. That's why we've been trying to find ways to get people together and safe ways even outside through here in this place, outdoor worship, small groups beginning to meet again. So if there's things you need, if you're wanting to get back involved, even like do a small little project on the church grounds, let us know. We're going to try to keep you up to date on things, on what's happening, but we need your feedback as well. So please fill out that survey. If you have thoughts, ideas, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or a member of Session or the task force. I think we're all trying to do the best we can right now. I know you're trying to do the best you can right now for yourself, for your family, for your friends. The key is we want to do things well and not just do them because that's what we do. And so we're going to try to rethink outdoor worship. How can we make it better? How can more people come? Think, how can we have indoor worship when we're allowed to have more in our sanctuary, when people are willing to come back? Can we have a really high quality indoor in-person worship at the same time as a live stream worship? How might that work? There's some different options, but we have to think about these things carefully because we want to invest not just in this small moment in time. How can the investments we make also serve us well into the future? For example, Building and Grounds is looking at getting touchless faucets and fixtures in the bathrooms. Well, we need to replace fixtures anyway. Some are pretty old, but also most places are going to touchless features like that. That's an investment that won't only serve during this pandemic, it serves every cold and flu season. It'll serve us well into the future. The live stream upgrades will serve us well into the future. So these are the discussions leadership is having. How can we make investments of time, resources, money that really help us right now, but also help us well into the future? So thank you for listening. Thank you for filling out that survey. Each member of your family can fill that out because two people may have different opinions on things, may be willing to do different things. And again, we're praying for you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if there's anything we can do for you. If you have new ideas, we're starting some new things coming up. In a couple weeks, we're going to start morning meditations where every morning a staff member will have a video on Facebook with just a 2 to 3 minute little devotional just to start off your day. More ways for you to be connected, more ways for you to get that kind of faith start to your day and to hear from different staff members, especially some of our newer staff members. So we hope that'll also help connect you. We're going to keep trying to innovate, keep trying new things like the Friday music previews, try to have more outdoor activities, whether it's for kids or anything else, as things ramp up. We're going to keep trying to do what we need to do to reach out to our community and to proclaim God's word, share God's love, and practice God's justice. Thank you for your patience, your faith, your commitment, your energy, intelligence, imagination, and love as Derry tries to continue to be the church God calls us to be now and in the future. May God be with you until we meet again.